chapter. GDG stands for Google Developers Groups, and we are a chapter based out of Edmonton, Canada. So thank you for joining. And in today's agenda, we're going to introduce our speaker. And my name is Temitope Ajiboye. I'll be the host for this Build with AI event. And we have three wonderful speakers. And at 10:15, we're going to have Ndidi, or shortly after this introduction, we're going to have Ndidi to take us on the topic AI Today, the curious case of the Gemini. And she's going to introduce us to what Gemini is and just a general talk on what you can expect from this Google stack. And then we're going to have a workshop right after, and it's by our speaker, Jamiu Okanlawon. Jamiu is a senior mobile developer, has incredible years of experience, and is the organizer of one of the biggest Flutter events in Africa. So he's going to be taking us through exploring Gemini and the Vertex AI, and he's going to be using Flutter as a case study. And we know Flutter is a Google tech, so it's going to be an interesting one. So we can be prepared for that. And shortly after, we're going to have Jerry Okafor. He's spoken to us before in our last event. So today is going to also do a workshop on using Gemini for movie recommendation on native Android app. So generally, the workshop focuses on what you can unlock with Google's Gemini and the incredible things you can do with it. So hopefully at the end of this workshop, you will see the amazing things that you can do with Gemini, Vertex AI, and the likes. So welcome again. If you can, it would be great to share our community and this virtual room to your friends, anybody you want to come join us. It's virtual, they can join anywhere in the world. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker today, Ndidi, to take us through AI Today, the curious case of the Gemini.
Hello, everyone. Good morning from this side of the planet. I know a lot of people are joining us from so many different places, but we're in Edmonton time, which is usually called Mountain Time, Edmonton in Alberta in Canada. So good morning from here, good evening, good afternoon. I will share my screen and we will get started. All right. So welcome to today's Build with AI series, which is being organized by Google Developer Group, Edmonton, as Tammy has said. But I'm also a Woman Tech Maker ambassador, so that's why that logo is up there. The Women Tech Makers is also another Google community that strives to provide visibility for women and for minority groups. So we promote their voices. We help organize events such as International Women's Day. We also organize events that help women to learn. So whether you're a new entrant in tech, whether you are an expert, whether you want to network and see how to build your career, Women Tech Makers is an organization that helps women and minority voices to do that. Today's session is for me. My session today, my talk is AI Today, the curious case of the Gemini. And it's a series in this Build with AI series that tries to understand AI. Artificial intelligence has become a thing in our world today. So we hear AI and we hear generative AI, and it seems like there's so much going on. Every product, every business is talking about it. Every student wants to understand what's going on. Many people also say that technology has become very pervasive right now. So even on our some of our instant messaging apps like WhatsApp, we see ask me something, and it's powered by AI. So we are trying to understand really what AI is today and how it can benefit today's world, apart from many of the doomsday prophecies we've heard, and how AI will take our jobs and how AI will take over. Let's understand what it is really, and let's use Google's Gemini to do that. So my talk today is going to give us an overview, a background. We'll start from it's going to be high level, but it's also going to help us understand really how AI developed. And it's also going to show us that AI has been around for quite some time. We've interfaced with it before this entire rave, started. We've interfaced with it multiple times at different intersections in our lives. And so this presentation is not going to be a workshop because we're going to have two other workshops after this. So they would be more hands-on. You might want to get Google AI Studio started for those ones. But for this one, I'm just going to give an overview, just help you understand the background and help you see with a different perspective how you can use AI today, how you can also use Google's Gemini and every of the other counterparts that currently exist. ChatGPT would be the counterpart for Google's Gemini. We know that ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI, which is owned by Microsoft. But today we're going to be looking at Google's Gemini very briefly, but we'll start with an understanding, a background. About me, my name is Ndidi Obinwanne. I am a Master's of Computing Science graduate from the University of Alberta, a machine learning engineer, and I'm experienced in technology consultancy in software as a service industries as well as marketing industries as well. I'm currently a Google Women Tech Maker Ambassador. I'm also a GDG Cloud Edmonton organizer. So let's first understand AI. What is AI? Artificial intelligence is broad. It's very broad. It consists of a lot of components. And so when you think about it as a field that focuses on creating systems. Why do we want to create systems? We want to automate a lot of things that happen day to day. As the world and economies grow, as populations soar, and we need different things, medicine, food, the financial sector becomes a thing, manufacturing, because we have to produce more goods for the teeming populace. We want to automate a lot of things. And because of that, this field tries to create systems to help to do that, perform these tasks that typically are not just simple. They're tasks that require human intelligence. And so AI is that field that tries to make sense of all of those tasks, automate them, and create systems that will just work. What are these tasks, you might ask? Things like reasoning, learning, problem solving, language understanding, and even perception. And so AI is implemented through fields such as, through methodologies such as machine learning, expert systems, natural language processing, and robotics. This is how AI is implemented. At some point, you have interfaced with an expert system before. When you have been to, say, a doctor who has to consult with, even after they make diagnosis, after they listen to all your complaints and they send you for tests, They make a diagnosis from a system that takes all of those things together. That's an expert system that they are consulting. Natural language processing, you've also interfaced with the Siri app. When you say, Siri, say something, or you ask it a question. Or like today, when you go to ChatGPT and you make a prompt, or you go to Google's Gemini and you also make a prompt, like we're going to be seeing later in today's session. Robotics as well, you may have interfaced with a robotics app somewhere before if you've been to places like Japan, or in some other countries where they have made industries out of robots. Types of AI, there is the narrow AI, designed to perform just a specific task, like facial recognition. So again, you have interfaced with this on your phone when you use your phone to gain access to your account. You may have also interfaced with this at the airport when they scan your faces, take your picture and try to match it with what you say you have on your passport. Speech recognition as well. Again, Siri comes to mind, the most obvious one. And then recommendation systems like Netflix, when they recommend movies for you, or when you go online and you say shop for something, you buy a face mask, or you buy a water bottle, or you buy that pair of jeans you've been eyeing for a while. And afterwards, you find ads that have targeted you based off of what you bought. It's pretty much AI at work. And the reason it does this is because it seems like you like jeans. So why don't I, recommend something else that is similar to a pair of jeans because you bought one before, right? I remember we started by saying that AI has come to create systems that help us to automate everyday tasks. We are growing as a population, and so we're requiring more things, requiring more production. Economies are growing, others are dwindling or going through the motion. But one thing is clear, movement is happening. And once many moving pieces become a thing in our lives, it means that at some point we have to be efficient about how we manage those different movements. So automating the systems and automating the tasks and creating these systems help us to manage things better. So with a narrow AI, we focus on just a specific task. But with a general AI, we focus on performing intellectual tasks that vary from, different things. So you can ask it a question, you can upload an image, you can upload an audio and tell it to transcribe. You may have heard of Otter AI. So Otter is this application that's been created now to help you take notes. So you can go into meetings and just add Otter AI as participants of that meeting. It listens to every conversation in that meeting and then provides you with a transcript of everything that was said. In this way, we have automated the minutes taking task, which happens every time because we always have meetings. Whether you're a student having a meeting with your supervisor, whether you're a teacher in class, giving out instructions to your students, and students listening to teachers in class, trying to take notes and trying to listen at the same time, or whether you're in industries, corporations where you have meetings with your teams, your bosses, your peers, and you want to listen to the points they're making, but you also want to have some notes so that you can refer to them later and remember what was it we were talking about? What was it we had to do again? And what was the priority again? Or you could be having a meeting with your clients, right? So Otter AI is one of those products that have come about from the creation of AI to help us automate the task of taking notes. And examples of a general AI would be Gemini and ChatGPT, like we've mentioned before. Another type of AI would be the super AI. Now, this is where a lot of the buzz has come in. Super AI is that advanced form that surpasses human intelligence. But what's the height of human intelligence, you might ask? Because that's where it starts from, right? So we need to I think research has shown that Albert Einstein has been the one genius person in human history, one of the genius people in history, who used 2% of his brain. 2%. That is for genius, right? So it means that we haven't tapped into all the capabilities of our brain cells. And so if we're able to create an AI that is able to use 100%, then we're not there yet. That's the point. So there's no need to fret or to go into the many of the doomsday prophecies. But it's just good for us to know that there's a type of AI that we can call super. And when we start to think of super AI, we're thinking of something that is more advanced than human intelligence. But right now, we know that human intelligence has no boundaries. So we can only get better. And so, understanding AI today, understanding generative AI, and how you can utilize AI in our everyday lives to build better products, to become more efficient, to understand more, learn new things, perhaps. Understanding that is a strength, I would say. And so, not so that we, sit on the fence of doomsday and AI will take over. For now, let's just understand what it is. Let's learn, and we see how we use AI in our everyday lives to make our lives or our professions better. So you might ask, what's the goal? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's to really perform tasks and automate it so that when it does something, you can look at it and say, oh, this could have been done by a human being. It's a human being that could have thought about how to put these tasks into steps and then how to automate this task and to see maybe a different perspective, maybe this same task in a different environment and adjust accordingly and perform the task and provide the result that is required. That's really the goal of AI. You want to develop a system that can automate a task, but you don't want just one task because we as human beings are diverse. Today you want A, tomorrow you want B. Maybe the third week you want a different thing. So as our behaviors change, we want systems that can adapt and can provide us with relevant feedback or relevant results to help us live our lives or perform our tasks better. That's really the goal of AI. So let's keep this in mind when many of the talk happens. It's good to see the different perspectives of what a tool like AI can help us do in our lives, as opposed to just having, I'd say, the fear that comes from not understanding it. And so that's why we're having this session. So achieving AI happens through different means. One subset, and this is just one, is machine learning. Machine learning is that field that enables development of algorithms. An algorithm is pretty much just a set of procedures. Do this first, and then do this. Then check if this condition is met. If it is met, then do this. If it's not met, don't do this, do that. It's pretty much what an algorithm is in simple terms. So we develop algorithms that enable the systems we've created to learn based on data. So one key thing to note here is that AI really is all about the data that we ourselves generate. Data is all around us, and every single day we generate data. This video, this session, this recording is data. What you did this week, the entire week, is data. When you woke up, the time you woke up is data. When you went to take your bath is data. What meal you cooked is data. What the recipe for the meal you cooked or what you had for breakfast is data. What you drank when you went to work, what bus you took or what train you took, how you drove to work, how much time you spent driving to work, when did you fuel your car? All of that is data. And AI is learning from our data. So it's not picking the data from anywhere. It's really everything we currently do in our lives today that feeds artificial intelligence as we know it. And so with machine learning, we have different subsets: supervised machine learning, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. And we'll just go through these. Again, this is an overview just to give you an understanding and a perspective of where many of our interaction with AI and why AI has become a big thing. This is just to give us a high level overview of what's going on and helping you understand and make sense of it all. So, with supervised machine learning, you train a model. In this case, let's call a model, let's call it a system for the purposes of this session. You train a system on experience, which is labeled data. You have data that you've sent into the system. So you, let's say, label your every single morning when you woke up, the time you woke up, the time you left the house for work, how much time you drove to work, and then when you got back home, for example. And then you train that model on that data and then make a prediction. So you make a prediction like next week, I predict that I would wake up at this time, leave for work at this time, and come back maybe at this time. It's a prediction, but you're making that prediction based on experience, something that you've already done. So, an example would be, is this email spam or not? Is this image of a cat, or of a cat or a dog? And we see the image on the right there, where a machine learning model can train on different images of cats and dogs. And at the end, if you feed it a new image that it has not seen before, it will be able to tell you if it's a cat or a dog. That's pretty much supervised machine learning. Unsupervised takes finds patterns. It takes data into the model, trains it, but it finds patterns and then tries to categorize them. Now, with unsupervised machine learning, you don't have to have labeled your data. So it can be objects, it can be different entries, like in Wikipedia entries when you categorize different data. So data about, say, food, for example, data about Hollywood movies, data about products, data about agriculture. So you're grouping different things that look similar, have similar patterns together. And an image here on the right shows something like that. So for this, it's just shapes. So you have the circles and you have polygons and whatnot. That's really, at a high level, what unsupervised machine learning is. Then there's reinforcement learning, which is pretty much a little bit different because it focuses on rewards. It creates a system and then has something called an agent, which is, again, it's like creating a model that tries to learn from behavior. So there's an environment, I start somewhere, I take a step and then get rewarded or penalized. If I take a step to the right and I get penalized, then then the model knows, okay, I shouldn't take a step to the right first. That shouldn't be my first step because I just got deducted like minus two. Or if to put it in clear terms, if it had taken that step and it got $20 taken off of its account, it's like, okay, no, that's not a good step to take. So the next time it's going to do something else. It will behave differently, probably take a step to the left, or go up or go down and try to see if you can maximize a reward in that state. That's pretty much reinforcement learning. And many of the AI platforms we have today, like OpenAI and even Gemini, use a form of reinforcement learning because what it does is, with all the feedback that it gives you when you prompt it, if it's a good feedback, it gets rewarded. If it's not a very good feedback, it gets penalized. And then it goes and trains again on more data and tries to be more accurate when it responds to your prompts. So there's an aspect of reinforcement learning that goes into the creation of general AI models such as OpenAI and Gemini. And then we come to natural processing. NLP is also a subset of ML, but NLP is distinct in that it combines computational linguistics. So what that means is really English language or Igbo language or Hindu or French or Mandarin takes this language and tries to create a computational model of it. How it does that is to do a rule-based modeling of the human language. So it's like when you try to learn English language, there is grammar, there's tense, tenses. So present tense, past tense, future tense, and then there's grammar, and then there are different rules. Pronouns. There are adverbs. There are adjectives, and there's a way we speak the English language because there's a way it should be spoken. The same thing with other languages, right? So it's got rules in there, and what NLP does is really to understand these rules and then create a computational model of them. This is high level, so that may not make very much sense right now, but that's pretty much what happens. If you want to take a deeper dive into NLP, I can provide some resources after the session. But what happens with NLP is the rule-based modeling of human language, and then combined with statistics and machine learning as well. So you have the supervised and the unsupervised and the reinforcement learning all in here. And the goal is really to understand and interpret human language so that when it takes video content or text or audio, it's able to give you back feedback. And NLP really is the bedrock of many of the large language models, the LLMs that we see today. And this is another form of ML. So now let's take the plunge with generative AI because that's what Gemini is, really. There's AI and then there's generative AI. The only difference pretty much is that AI tries to learn from what it is you've done. So behavioral patterns, data, it finds relationships and constructs and structures and tries to make predictions or tries to label a category or tries to cluster or tries to reward based on good behavior and bad behavior. Now, that's very I'm using those terms very loosely. Good and bad behavior pretty much means behavior that happens often or what should happen, and behavior that shouldn't happen when you take in an agent in an environment into consideration. But with generative AI, something completely new is developed based on what it has learned about you. So it can generate an entire article when you start to talk of generative AI. Meanwhile, AI is artificial intelligence that tries to just be intelligent and help you do your work better and smarter. But now, if you decide, yes, I want to do my work even more than I was doing it before. I want to be smarter and I want to work more efficiently. Now, can you maybe create an entire code for me to build maybe this product that does XYZ? Generative AI can do that. And that is the capability of Gemini and OpenAI. You can actually have new code that is generated for you to develop something. And this is how we need to think about approaching this understanding and the new world of AI that we're getting into, is to think about it as something that can help you in your work, in your life to be better. So if you would like to build a better product, all you have to do is really take information about the products you've built before or what you think your product should be about, and then have Gemini or OpenAI give you tools to make that product better. So it can generate entire articles, entire images, and it's doing this because it's learning, again, the patterns and structures within the data. And in this case, in Gemini's case, it is multimodal. So what that means is it can do image and it can do text. So it can generate text for you. It can also generate images for you. It can generate audio for you, even music. Think about it. It can generate an entire movie script and probably generate an entire movie. And I know some people might be like, I don't know if I want that, but perhaps let's not knock it yet, until we understand again the full capabilities and we start to inculcate them. So try out the Google AI Studio, give it some prompts, see what it gives you, and see how usable they are in your everyday life. And so Gemini today, as I've said, can create all of these things: stories, articles, poems, scripts. It doesn't matter. Paintings, 3D models, music, voiceovers. And the way to think about it is helping to automate many of those tasks that we do currently. Many of the tasks that probably are something you need in your workspace or that you need to create a career. Understanding the background helps us to see how this is not something alien. It's learning patterns and pretty much making function mappings from the data we generate to try to make predictions. And so I will stop here because that's pretty much it for my session today. The possibilities are endless. Like I said, it's really how you think about the tool. This was an overview. We're going to have workshops, and so I didn't get into any of that, even though I wanted to show this one capability for Gemini. So allow me to do this. And I'll share my screen one more time. Okay, so this is a Google AI Studio where you can create just a chat prompt that is, what is this? Or tell me that. Or a structured prompt where you have tables and you can upload other things. In this studio as well, there is also the get code. So if you wanted to learn how to code something, this is where the other speakers would, because there'll be a workshop after this that really gives you a hands-on demonstration of how to use these. But I wanted to show this one capability where you can, so I said that Gemini is multimodal. What I meant by that is you can upload something like this, like a picture from your document or from your computer. I have this picture of West Edmonton Mall that I'm uploading, and I'm going to ask Gemini to describe the picture. And I say run. And this is the result. The photo shows a large indoor wave pool with many people enjoying a day at the water park. There are people of all ages. There's a sign that reads Flow Rider, which is likely the name of the water park. There's a tall structure in the background, So it's described this image. I can ask it how many people are in this picture as well. And so it says it's difficult to get an exact count, but there are at least 70 people in the photo. The large waves make it hard to clearly see every individual, especially those closer to the center of the pool. So we see that even the tone of how it talks is personal. It's like a human being talking to you and describing a photo that they've seen somewhere at the West Edmonton Mall. All right, with that, I come to the end of my session. If you have any questions, please let me know. And I will take them. Oh, I see a question from Evan. I'm really curious how reward and punishment works. Okay, that's for reinforcement learning. So with reinforcement learning, what happens is the agent, the system that has been created, acts like a human being that tries to strategize on how to behave in that environment. Obviously, you, the designer of the environment, you know what the right behaviors should be, so to speak. You know what. So if you're designing an environment for a gameplay, for example, if it's tic-tac-toe, you know that once you have diagonals or straight lines, verticals or horizontals, then that's a win. And what you do is you assign points for all of those wins. Now, if the agent behaves in such a way that it gets any of those crosses, then you assign it a point. So that agent knows that, okay, this is the right behavior for me to do in this environment, this gameplay. But if it doesn't achieve any of those crosses, diagonally or vertically or horizontally, then it gets penalized, which is points are removed or are deducted. It's more complex than this. There's a math behind it, really. And that math pretty much programs a state of rewards and punishment and the behaviors or the steps that an agent takes in that environment. There's a whole lot more to reinforcement learning. If you want more on that, I can provide you with some resources. But at a high level, that's what it is. So it works only when you know what you want to get. So yes, it's like you design an environment to achieve a particular task, not any task, right? It's a particular task you're focused on. And you can design other environments to achieve other tasks. But for this one task, what you want the agent to do is to be able to behave the way you want it to behave so that it can achieve or maximize the rewards for that environment. So it's like if you created, let's say, a virtual area, right? And you had an agent start here and you said, I have a bottle here. I want you to get to this bottle. But then there are obstacle courses in between. There are different paths it can take to get the bottle, right? Um, and you wanted to get the bottle in a certain amount of time. So it shouldn't take you, let's say, more than 2 minutes to get it, or 1 minute. If it takes the agent more than 2 minutes, then you penalize the agent. And so the agent knows that, okay, Sikimi, what's this environment requires me to do is to get this bottle, but get it within a certain amount of time. Does that make sense? All right, Evan. Thank you too. If you have other questions, I would be happy to answer them. I think we have maybe 5 more minutes or 10, not sure, but
If you have no more questions, then thank you very much, Ndidi, for the amazing talk. And I'm glad everybody has learned something from this one. So, without much further ado, let me show you again our agenda. So, we just had AI today, the curious case of the Gemini by Ndidi. Next, we are going to have a workshop by Jamiu Okanlawon. It's going to be walking us through exploring Gemini and Vertex AI in your Flutter apps. And a little bit about our next speaker. His name is Jamiu, and he has this nice cap on. But he is a senior mobile developer with over 6 years of experience, and he's a community builder. He currently hosts one of the largest Flutter conference in Africa. It's called the Flutter Byte Conference. If you can check that out, they're on Twitter and all the social media platform. So yearly, he organizes this conference that has over 500 to 1,000 participants every year. So he has vast experience with Flutter apps. So let's welcome Jamiu to hold this workshop. Welcome, Jamiu.
Great. Thank you very much, Temi Tokbe, for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Get started. Okay. So hello everyone. I am Jamiu Okanlawon, as introduced earlier. Uh, I am what's everything Temi said. Yeah, I'm a mobile engineer, Flutter engineer to be precise. That's what I'm currently doing now. I'm a conference organizer, a community builder, and yeah, is one more part you didn't mention. I also work at One Roof Corporation, where we ensure that you know who your neighbor is. So while it is currently just in the US, we eventually expand to other parts of the world in due time. Yeah, so getting into the topic, today I am going to be speaking about how to use Gemini and Vertex AI in your Flutter applications. So the most of today's talk will be live code, will be us live coding, but I didn't just want to jump into live coding, so I prepared some notes and some introduction to generative AI, Gemini, and Flutter. And also, I didn't know that Ndidi is going to touch like generative AI as well. She really did a great job touching all the aspects. But then, since I prepared it anyways, I would just quickly brush through what I have in the notes, and then we get right to coding. So first, what is generative AI? Generative AI is basically a field of artificial intelligence focused on being able to create new content or new data like text, code, images by analyzing from existing data sets. The key point to there is it focuses on content generation. The outputs are diverse. That is, I don't want to use the word random, but what I mean by diverse is that uh, you can get both text, code, and images, and also you get something new every time. So and yeah, you can also make sure you get something like you get the same kind of data every time as well. Also, it is data driven. That is, it learns from a large set of data. As it is called, it is an LLM, a large language model, as Ndidi has described earlier. So let's talk about what Gemini is. Gemini is Google's attempt to making generative AI accessible to everyone. We must have heard of ChatGPT, Gamma AI, and the likes, and a lot of generative AI. But Gemini is the Google's attempt, and we have various types of Gemini or various types of the model. We have the Gemini Ultra model, we have the Gemini Pro, we have the Gemini Flash, and we have the Gemini Nano. Gemini Ultra is the largest, of course, and it requires a lot of processing power. So we don't usually use that. Like it is used by companies who have access to the to the GPUs and electricity and money at the end of the day, right? Then we have the Gemini Pro, which is the one we use day to day. It is the one we interact with when we visit gemini.google.com, and it is the one we usually build with. Uh, then we have Gemini Flash, which is a lightweight version of Gemini Pro. It is much faster, uses less memory, and so on. And then we have Gemini Nano. This is This is the on-device Gemini. So imagine having Gemini on your phone. So regardless of when it comes to generative AI, we are usually talking about using a large amount of storage, GPU, memory, and the likes, right? So Nano is like that's very, very boiled down. Like it is really, really all those complexity has been reduced to the minimum so it can be placed on devices. So we have Gemini Nano, which is on some devices, and we'll get to some devices in few years to come. And then we have Google wanted us to do things to build with Gemini, right? And they gave us two ways to actually interact with Gemini's. With Gemini, they gave developers two ways to interact with Gemini. The first is the Google AI SDKs. It basically enables building generative AI features directly into client applications and in the backend. What I mean is, these are so imagine Gemini is supposed to be you making a call to maybe an endpoint somewhere, something Google has built, right? But they have built SDKs around it for Flutter, for Android, for iOS, for every possible client that you can think of, and then backend language like Python and JavaScript as well. And then they also provide an alternative, which is Vertex AI, which enables you to build on Gemini in the cloud, right? So you build in the cloud, meaning that you can eventually build your own model, like your own type of model, and then deploy it on the Vertex AI on the cloud. So those are the two uh, tools given to us to access the models, because people get it wrong when they think generative AI, which we will get to, or Vertex AI is the actual model. No, these are accessors. The model is the Gemini Ultra Pro and the likes. So Google AI SDK and Vertex AI helps us access these models. So what is Flutter? Flutter is an open source framework by Google for building beautiful native compiled multi-platform applications from a single code base. This was copied from the flutter.dev page. Flutter basically is just a framework that helps you build cross-platform mobile applications on not just even mobile applications, but it enables you write one code for building a client app, right? And then you can compile this code natively to Android, iOS, web, macOS, Linux, even embedded devices, any clients you can think of. Now, let's talk about Gemini and Flutter, the use cases, things that we can eventually build when we mix both together. We can build AI powered tutors, personalized products, smart assistants, tools for generating arts, music, and writing, and recommendation products like the one which we would be building in this workshop. So we'll be building a tool called an article idea generator, and this is going to help you uh, generate article ideas. You type in a prompt like programming, like Flutter, and then it's going to help you generate uh, useful prompts from it, useful article ideas, sorry, from it. Then we have the tools that we use in Flutter. So the tools used in Flutter, we have one called the Google Generative AI package, which we will get to in a few minutes. And then we have the Firebase Vertex AI. Google Generative AI package is what enables us access the Google AI SDKs, as I mentioned earlier. And for the Vertex counterparts, Firebase Vertex AI enables us to that, access the models through that. So we will be building an article idea generator, as I've said earlier. And before we start, we need to do some setups. The first thing to do to work with Google Generative AI is to create a Google Cloud account or a Firebase account. So you can create either of these two. So to create a Google Cloud account, we simply search for Google Cloud Console. Then this first tab is what we need. We click here. If you can see, let me zoom in my screen. So you click on this guy over here, and then you can create a new project, right? For me, I've created a new project. You just need to enter project name, the location, and then you create. Because I've created a new project called Gemini Demo, I will not be creating a new one. If you'll be following along, I would encourage you to create this now. as we will be using this in a few minutes. So the next thing you need to do is to obtain an API key. To interact with Google AI SDK or Generative AI SDK, you need an API key. And this is common for interacting with SDKs, of course, because they want to be able to track your usage and so forth. So you can, to get the API key, I will like to, you go to aistudio.google.com/app/API key. /API key, and then you click on create an API key. You will search for your Google project. If you created a project from here, you are going to see your project here. So you can select your project, and as soon as you select your project, you can click create API key from in existing project. So at that point, you would have your API key listed somewhere here. So I have this following API keys for all the apps that I have built. And today we will be using this, which I've created earlier, as I've shown you. We had this Gemini demo, and then we are going to copy our API key as we need it in a moment. The next step is to engineer the prompt. Before engineering the prompt, I would like to paste my API key somewhere here. So to work with Gemini, even in the engineering aspect of things, in the engineering side, you also need to create a prompt. You need to create this prompt, because the way generative AI work, as I have said, as Ndidi has said, is you accept an input, which is the prompt, and this input could be text, image, code, or anything at all. And then it's going to return or generate an output, which is, it can be a text, an image, and the likes as well. So in the AI Studio, the AI Studio gives us a nice tool for us to work on our prompt, right? To try to refine our prompt before we get started. So we said we are building an article idea generator, right? And a minute, please. I would like to show you what we want to build, because I think that would make us understand why we are doing this step, right? So what we want to build is basically this. We can type a prompt like such as Flutter, and once we click on this, it's going to generate some article ideas to us. Could be getting started with Flutter, whatever, and so on and so forth. And then no matter what, if we type programming, if we type food, whatever we type, is going to give us a new or good article ideas that corresponds to that prompt. That is basically what we want to build. So before we start trying this out in the app, as you can see, you will also notice that what I'm returning is just a list of article ideas 01 based on the index, right? And then the app basically, for Flutter engineers, the app has a main view, this view, and this view has a loading indicator and a data view. When we are fetching, the loading indicator shows, and then when we have data, we have our data. If we don't have a query, we show an error to the user. And this is basically it. It uses set states for state management as well. So while we are here, I would like to share the repo to you, just in case you want to follow along. So this is a starter. This is can get started from where I currently am. So let's resume back here to work on our prompt. So our prompt will be something like this. We could say return 10 random article ideas based on the following text. And then the text is Flutter. So, and then we can run. So we get random article ideas on Flutter, and we get all of this. So the thing is, in Flutter, we only need, or in the development side, we only need this list. We don't need this title. Having this title would be troublesome for us because we would have to first remove this title from our text and then find a way to to make this work. But then, because this can be random, like if this can be random. Like if I try this and some other time, this could be different from what I had. Then I need to come up with something better, something more predictable. So I will have the same prompt, but now I want to say return only the list without any title and description and any form without title and description and any form of numbering or format. And let's try this out. So now I have Flutter for beginners, Flutter for web development, and so on. This is exactly what we want. So there is one more step that I like to add because we want to be able to split each of this into multiple text. So I like adding this replace and sometimes this can come as a bullet point. So I would say replace the bullet point or space with new lines. And let's try this out. Then we have this. So everything is listed on a new line. So let's try it again. Let's try another prompt like programming. Yeah, I think we are good to go. So because this works almost all the time. So in a real app, we do this process like multiple times, like about 10, 20, 100 times to ensure that we get predictable response each time, right? And also in a real app, I usually am not a prompt engineer. So this is something that some people actually learn to do. They understand how to create the right prompts. And yeah, I am not one of those. I just try my best to, ask Gemini questions as I do daily, right? So we have our prompts and we are ready to get started. So the logic of fetching this article idea is somewhere here, as you will see. Like we call article idea detector fetch article ideas, and then we set the results to this list of article ideas. So, and initially, remember we were returning just this list. So in this same class, we are going to implement using Gemini in our app. First and foremost, let's have our prompt. Let's create our prompt. So get prompt. We create a new method get prompt, and we want to accept a query. Our prompt will be a string, and we pass in this query. We return the prompt that we have come up with initially, which is this. So this is our prompt. You will notice that this is the dynamic part, right? This changes based on what the user passes in. So I am going to replace this part with this dynamic value, which is the query. So we have our prompt, exactly what we have here, what we had here, we already have it in our app. Now we are implementing Gemini. So implement Gemini, I already mentioned that we use the Google Generative AI SDK, and for every SDK's packages plugin, you can find them on a web page called pub.dev. That's what Flutter provides for you to make use of external packages. And then we can search for Google Generative AI. So let's check Google Generative AI. It is currently 0.4.1. Let's check the installing tab and let's attempt to install it. So while installing it, let's go back to the README and let's check the usage. So after installing it, the documentation says add the imports and then declare your API key, declare your model, declare your prompts, enter your content, and then try to generate the response and then print the response. So we are going to follow these exact steps. And mind you, it is as simple as this. What you do on gemini.google.com is as simple as what we have here. What we did earlier at this point is what we are doing here, and I will show you in a few minutes. So the first thing we need is the import. So we go straight into this file. Let me think we have done all of the steps. Let's import Google Generative AI. And then the first thing we need is the generative model. So let's get our generative model into the app. Remember I mentioned that you need your API key. And my API key is what I've copied here. Something I should say at this point is that in a real project, in a production project, even if it is a playful project, you should not expose your API keys. You shouldn't expose it to the open source or even private source. You don't expose your keys in any way. So you make use of this m.json or m. whatever file that you make use of environment variables to hide this environment variable because it is an environment variable. So you make use of tools that can enable you hide it. But for simplicity, we are going to place our API key here. So we have our model. Remember that this is the model. This is the accessor, as I've said. This accessor or this tool for accessing models, we can use it to access different kind of models. We could use it for accessing Flash models, Pro models, and so on and so forth. In this case, we are going to stick with the Gemini 1.5 Flash. So we have our model. The next is the prompts. We have our prompts here already. The next step is to make use of the model or to get the prompt to work the prompt. So the prompt we have here is just a string. The way to represent prompts in Gemini is to use something called a content. And this content can either be data, it can be a model itself, it can be multi-parts. Multi-parts can be what multi-part means. You can use it to accept images, PDFs, and so on, right? Files, generally, the multi-part. So you have the system, and then you have the text. In our case, we will just be using the text. So in our text, we will be passing our prompt, which is get prompt, and then we pass in the query from the user. So, and we are good. So this is the first step. We have made our prompts what is usable by Gemini, because this is what Gemini can use and not this. So the next step is to use our model to generate content. So before even generating content, let me show you things that we can do with the model. major things we can do with the model is to start a chat, like what we do on gemini.google.com. So you can start a chat, and then this chat will give you history. Like it keeps the history of the previous chat, and your subsequent chat is going to make use of what you had initially, sent, and everything will be in the context of that chat, right? So, but we are not going to be building a chatbot in this workshop. We are simply going to be generating content. And also we have the generate content stream, which can be used to, so it is a variation of generate content, but it returns the result as a stream rather than a future. So as data engineers, I believe that you know what a future and a stream is, right? So we simply generate content, and in our prompts, we pass in a list of prompts, and we pass in our content as a list of prompts. Why do we accept a list of prompts here? That's because you can have as many prompts as possible chained onto each other. Like you can have another prompt, say multi, as I've said earlier, and this will be content multi, and then you can just add that there. It's more of you attaching a text and an image, right? So that's why this accepts a list of content. But again, all we need is the text. So we can go ahead to get the results, and for a start, what we are going to do is to print out the result. Result.text. So we are going to print out the result. So now let's restart. Let's type programming, and then let's see. So as we have before, we still have this, and that's because we are still returning the list of article ideas. But you are going to see here that we are getting the actual list of article ideas here. So since this is returned as a string, as a list of string, what we can do is to first check a simple error handling. If result of text equals null, we want to return an empty list. Return an empty list. Otherwise, we want to take our result, the text, and we want to split that by a new line. So we want to split that by a new line. And then let's store this into a variable called article ideas. And let's check what we have again. So same prompts, programming, and now we have a list of all of this. So we can simply return the list now that we have the list. And we can delete all of this that we had initially, or even for simplicity, we can just return this whole thing. And then now let's try it out. And now we see that we have our article idea generator. If we type any other topic like Flutter, then we get this, which are titles for possible articles that we can write, right? So this is one of that power of generative AI. And this is just the simplest that I can think of, right? You can use it to do just anything, right? So in the last hackathon build that was just concluded by Google cloud team, I saw people building, this for generating content for businesses, for small businesses, using this to generate quizzes, like a lot of ideas, that you can use Gemini to build. And it's all from this simple prompt. So it depends on how good you are with your prompt, how good you are with your engineering, and so on and so forth. So this is basically all. honestly, about um, generative AI. We are going to be moving on to Vertex, but before we move on to Vertex, I am going to just point out some things to you. So, in a production application, as I've said earlier, your API key won't be here. It has to be in the m.json. It is out of the scope of this call or this workshop, so I won't be showing you how to do that. Alternatively, I would be sharing resources on how to do that at the end of this class. Something else is you need to undo errors. The reason why you need to undo errors is that currently we believe that this will always return a list of this text. But there are cases, we call these cases hallucination, right? There are cases where Gemini will just want to be stubborn, right? Like there are cases like that. I mean, you must have used Gemini and you will enter some prompt and you'll be like, no, this is not what I want, right? So, and it has been returning, something consistent initially, but then it will just decide not to work anymore. In that case, this whole thing is going to break. So in your app, you need a better way of handling this error. That's also out of the scope of this class, but it's just something to note. A simple error handling that we can do here is to, wrap this with a try and catch, and eventually say whenever we get any exception, if anything fails, just return an empty list. That way we are sure that our app won't break. But what you're supposed to do would be maybe to throw an error to show a snack bar that okay, something went wrong for the user to see, and not just an empty list you get. So this is this about Gemini. To work on Vertex, we need to use another SDK called the Firebase Vertex AI. And basically, what we are going to be doing is just to extend what we had initially. Remember, I told you that the reason why we had or we have Vertex is just so Gemini is lightweight for clients, Vertex is for the cloud. So Vertex being in the cloud means you can build your own models as well, and you can do a whole lot. There are a whole lot of possibilities, for you with Vertex, and that's what is advised for companies, for enterprise, to use, right? So we are going to explore how to build with Vertex, but with this extending, so we are going to be having both the title and the description. So that's what we will be doing. So instead of having just the title, Flutter for Beginners, we have Flutter for Beginners and a brief description of what you want to build. And that's basically it. So at this point, I hope you all are following, because I've said a lot. Oh, can you guys hear me? You can drop a chat. Oh, thank you very much. Let me just commit this. It's done. Oh, sorry. I need to add first. So, I want to just branch. So we'll be starting the vertex parts using this data. So on the same repo, if you want to follow along, let me push what we have here. Gemini. So if you want to follow along, this is the startup project for this new project. And then on the, by the way, on the main repo, you will see the all the versions, like the implemented version, the initial version, the starter, and so on, right? Just in case you want to explore later on. So, but now we have the Vertex starter. And why did I create this? That's because of time. I actually thought I wouldn't have enough time. And the process of adding Firebase to your project and all of those stuff, it takes a little bit of time. And that is why currently I have added Firebase to the project, the Firebase core. And also I have added Firebase to the project. You will see the Firebase options. Whenever you see all of this, right? Um, initialize app, ensure initialized, and so on. Um, you will know that this project is set up, or Firebase has been set up on the project. That is, you can go ahead to use tools like Firestore, Firebase authentication, and so on. So, and the Vertex AI is just another offering that Firebase is giving you to work with. So, before working, the setup you need to do in Firebase before starting. Initially when we were using Google AI SDK counterpart, we had to create this, we had to get an API key and so on and so forth like that. For Firebase, on the other hand, you don't need an API key. You don't need an API key at all. So you just simply go to firebase.google.com, you go to the console, after creating your project, setting up your project and all. If you are interested in, adding Firebase to your project and so on, I'm going to share resources on how to do that as well. Then you go to your projects. So this is my project, Vertex demo, right? You will see this new tab in Firebase. For people who use Firebase like day to day, you see this new tab, build with Gemini, and then you can set up Gemini. I am saying this because I had set up Gemini initially. Let me go to a new project to kind of show how to do this setup. So to set up Vertex in Firebase, simply click on Get Started. So a caveat is that you need to be on the Blaze plan before you can use Vertex. That is, you need to be on the plan where you pay. So you add your card details and so on. So you create a new billing account and so on and so forth. So in my case, I have some trial billing account and I can decide to create a billing account as well. After this, you just click on continue, continue, and you are good to go. So, and that is basically all you need to do. When you are done with that process, you see something like this, an app created for the Android part and an app created for the iOS part. You can also click here to create a Vertex app for the web and so on and so forth. So this is all you need to do to set up Vertex AI in Firebase. And because you have this in the cloud and you have this in Firebase, you don't need a key for Vertex AI. That's another perk. You don't need a key. You don't need to add a key into your app and be worried about how you have to hide the keys and so on and so forth, right? So uh let's look at what we have here. Getting started, right? So what we have here, if we try to load, let me auto restart the app to start all over. Let's just restart. Okay, so because Firebase Core is a plugin, not a package, we need to restart from scratch. So we need to restart the app so it can set up all of these method channel calls and so on. So give a few minutes for this to be done. And basically, we have the same app, right? While this is loading, we have this app, Gemini Demo View, which accepts a query. And then when this is fetching, you have the loading view. Otherwise, you have the data view, right? And this time around, the data view is generating a list of both the article ideas, both with the title and the description. So it is not just the title this time around, it is the title and the description. And now we have a model. Since we want to track both the title and the description, we have a simple model that contains the title and the description. And then we have it from JSON. This is something we have for serialization. Data engineers and Flutter engineers should understand what this is, right? And then in our repository, where we have our method, we have this, which is returning article idea index. So let's just try it out. This time around, I won't enter any text. You see, as I said earlier, if you don't enter any text, you get an exception or an error. And then if I type in the text, you just simply get article idea 0, description 0, article idea 1, description 1, and so on and so forth. So this time around, we want to work with Vertex. So we will use another SDK. We go back to pub.dev, as I've said earlier. And this time around, we're using a package called Firebase Vertex AI, if I'm right. Yeah. So we have Firebase Vertex AI. So let's click on this and let's copy this, or let's install this way. Sorry, I think I like this. So let's go to the terminal and let's add this. So now we have Firebase Vertex AI in our project. So let's go to the README, because this is the first thing I do. But unfortunately, this README does not contain enough information for us to use Vertex. I think somewhere they said to get started with Vertex AI for Flutter, see this documentation. Okay, let's see what we have in the documentation. In the documentation, let's select Flutter. And so here they are telling us how to set up Firebase, how to add all of this, which is the process that I've done earlier, right? How to add, we just did this, right? Then running our Flutter app. And yeah, this is basically what we do. So you need this model. I am going to copy this model as it is. Let's declare our model in our class. Oops. Before using this, we need to import our package, right? So again, like I said, Firebase Vertex AI is an accessor. It enables us access our models. In this case, we are attempting to access the Gemini 1.5 Flash preview, right? To see the types of models or various models that we have, we can get to the page. Like when you get to this particular page, you go to the Gemini models page, and then you are going to see all the various types of models that you can use at this point. So this contains the documentations of the various types of models, what they are used for, the capabilities, and so on and so forth, right? So in our case, we are using this. So we have defined our model. The next step is to engineer our prompt, just as we have done or earlier. So our prompt would be something like this. Same prompt, right, that we had initially, but this time around, we don't want a list. So this is a challenge. When I first started using Google Generative AI, I noticed that it returns the response as a string. And this string is not a valid JSON. And the implication of that is that we are not able to make it make sense to the app. Like we are not able to serialize it. We are not able to parse it. This is just a string. We need to be able to predict what is coming. Oftentimes, we receive data as XML, JSON, and other supported types, right? But this time around, it is just a string of maps. So to serialize it is really, really hard to do, right? but we will find an easy way to approach this with Vertex, right? So now we want to return 10 random article ideas based on the following text programming as we have done earlier. But this time around, we want to tell it to answer in JSON formats with keys type. Can you guys hear me? Hello. Okay, thank you very much. I lost connection for a while. That was why I needed to be sure that you guys can still hear me. Okay, so to proceed, where were we? Yeah, so we were at the point where we were engineering the prompt. So answer in JSON format with the keys title and description. So let's run what we have. Now we have this following text. We have this. So this is a proper JSON. So we can go ahead and create our prompt in code. So get prompts again, get prompt that returns a string from a query. And then we want to return a multi-line text as we did earlier. This time around is much simpler since we have a straightforward format to work with. So, and our dynamic part is this query over here. So we pass in the query, we replace everything we have here with the query. So just as before, basically, we need to, I want to return this try and catch because I want to see the error in real time. Like I don't want, so when we add the catch with returning empty string, empty list, what will happen is anytime we get an error here, it will just swallow it up and we won't be able to make better decisions. And our alternative would be to print, but I prefer to just get it on the console here. So the next thing would be to make our prompts make sense. And that's using the content, as I've said earlier. It is basically the same, honestly, the way you interact with them. So content.text, and our text is the prompt. We pass in the query. We can remove this for now, and then we have model, which is our model here, which is the Gemini Flash that generates content. We want to pass in a list of content as we have done earlier as well, right? So let's try this out. Let's try to print the response as we have done in the past. So let's print the response.text. So let's restart. Let's type programming and let's see what we get. Yeah, so now we get this text, JSON, title, and so on and so forth. So there is an issue with this because this is returned as a code here. We will always get this text dash 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 JSON, and at the end, so we get that JSON as well. And this, we can't work with this kind of data. We need the data from this point onwards, not from here. This will cause a format exception if we try to pass this JSON, and we can try it out. So to pass JSON, we use the JSON.decode, right? and we attempt to decode our response.text. Uh, Before decoding, again, I want to check if response.text equals null. It should simply return an empty list. Otherwise, we want to proceed to decode this, and then we want to save the result in a result. So now I want to attempt to print the result. So let's restart again, and let's type programming. Yes. So we get a format exception. And what is it saying? It is telling us that we have this dash 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 or backtick JSON at the beginning of the JSON. And that is understandable as that is not a valid JSON object. So that is not a valid JSON object. So there are ways in which we can do this. First way would be to take this response.text and try to um, use dot splits. Sorry, dot replace. We will replace everywhere we see the backtick with an empty string. Anywhere we see the JSON, we replace it with an empty string. And this is supposed to solve this, right? It's straightforward. We know this will always return this, so we just use this. So another way would be to use the generation config property of this. So the generation config property accepts a couple of variables. The first being temperature. Temperature is the level of uh, how do I put this, consistency, like the level of randomness here. So if this is at 1, then you are giving the model the control to be as creative as possible, right? And this, the implication of it is that it can eventually hallucinate at some point, right? So, and not give a consistent data. So, but at 0, you are telling it that give me whatever I have passed in and nothing more, right? I don't want you to be too creative or overly creative, right? And the second, which we need, is the content, what's it called? Response MIME type, and that is application.json. You have text play in application.json, so on and so forth. In our case, we are interested in application.json. So while this doesn't really work all the time, let's see what uh, results this will give us if it will be different from what we had. So you can see that as soon as I added response MIME type application.json, this works, right? The reason why I mentioned that while this doesn't work all the time is because due to my experience using the accessors and the models, I've noticed that there's still a lot of work being done, like currently on this package or on these plugins. And maybe after 100 generations, you might get that JSON backtick again. You get the idea. So, and that's why we always need to pass our response. Like we need to, handle errors rather. Like we always need to handle errors for fallback scenarios, right? So now that we have gotten our JSON in a list with title and description, we do basically what we do in that most of the time. First, let me assign this to a list of dynamic objects. So my results, I am going to map it to another object. So I am going to be mapping it to the article idea, and from JSON, which is what I did earlier, right? Which is this, right? That engineer would understand this. So, or Flutter engineer. So we map our results to a JSON object, and we create a list out of it, a list of article idea, ideas, and simply we convert this to a list at the end of the day. So we are saying we get our content from the prompt, or we get our prompt, we pass into our response, we ensure that our config is set, that is no creativity or less creativity, and then our response type should always be a JSON object. We ensure that whenever we get any like node text, we return an empty string, and maybe we can even add another or response the text is empty, which is another valid case. So if it is empty, we return this, right? So if it is not empty, then we proceed to this line to decode our text, which is our JSON, our string. We get it as a list of maps, and then we are going to convert this list of maps to a list of article ideas, and then we are going to replace our results with this. So we can restart our app and type in JavaScript in case there are any JavaScript engineers here and they see me using Flutter and they're like, does this guy know anything about? Okay, so now we have our response, we have the title and the description. So this is an article idea, mastering as a asynchronous JavaScript, and this is the description just to tell me, give me more insight of this title, right? So, and that is basically what we are building. Just to explore more of what we can do with generate content, we can also set the safety settings. This is very, very important for responsible AI. So a safety setting, you have several categories. So one category is dangerous content, harassment, hate speech, sexually explicit, and unspecified. If you want to block one, for example, say hate speech, you can pass in a second parameter that accept the threshold. So threshold I, block this entirely, like I don't want this. Block it totally. Oh, sorry, this should be this. So the arm block threshold medium, okay, medium, and then we have the low as well. So if you want to block it totally high and so on, and you can set it does if you want to set multiple, it does need to pass, multiple here as well. So and you can another thing you can do is to change the type of model you're using. So instead of using Flash, we could use Pro, for example. Like I said, Flash is just a light version of Pro. So let's see what Pro gives us. Okay, now you see what I was saying? Pro gave us a map of string and dynamic instead. So in this case, if I try like some more time, it's going to give me what I eventually want. But you see what I was saying about, this being worked on and the possibility of it not giving consistent results at all times, which is why you need to always undo the error. I wanted to just show you, the different types. So you have the pro, you have the where is it? You have the pro, you have the pro preview, and so on. You have the pro vision. Yeah, this is something that I have not mentioned. So for the pro and flash, it accepts input of texts over here. Where is it? It accepts text, code, images, PDFs. Sorry, PDFs, but no audio, right? No video. For 1.0 Pro, it doesn't even accept images, PDFs, or any of this. But from Flash and from Pro, and also the Pro Vision, they work with, images, videos mostly, right? So you can get all of those documentation here, and you will see these are the types. You will see what each one specifically does, right? As I've said earlier. So that is the end of the live coding. So just a few more stuffs before we go. The future of AI is that what we should expect in the nearest future is increase in personalized context, our experiences. AI will be blending with our lives for sure. Imagine if the business content generation app was implemented properly or has been implemented properly, then small business owners won't need to worry about creating content and also juggling it with other tasks in their businesses as well, right? Some jobs will become obsolete, definitely, definitely, and more jobs will be created. That is the good news. So more jobs will be created for sure. So the resources that you can make use of, we have the flutter.dev.ai, a new page created by the Flutter on their page, basically for AI. So you see everything, Google AI data is the key, which we touched earlier, and then Vertex AI, which we touched later, and then you will see a couple of more documentations here. Um, we have the article for building, for setting up environment variables as compile time. And then, of course, we have the gemini.google.com, right? Which is what I used for the slide. So this is something that you can also use to learn about generative AI itself, right? So, and yeah, that is the end of the session. Any questions, guys? Okay, can I share the resources? I am going to share the resources. In fact, let me make the slide publicly accessible. Let me share that here as well. So, any questions, guys?
Hi, thank you, Jamiu, for the wonderful session. Um, I was just wondering, no doubt you said that the better prompting will lead us to the good results. And
Yeah.
in the future of AI, you mentioned that context aware uh, AI will be the future where every organization is trying to customize these AI models for their specific requirement in the industry. So I was just working on RAG for OpenAI, integrating RAG with OpenAI. So can we use RAG with Gemini also to personalize or you customize the context?
Definitely. Recently, during the Google AI, no, Google I/O, yeah, during the Google I/O, um, it was announced we have something called the AI agents. You can use the AI agents to definitely customize um, your experiences with the uh, Gemini SDK or the Vertex AI as well. Uh, Let me find. I'm coming. Just a moment. So I have a resource on that, like straight to the point, that can actually help you. Uh, let's see. That can, okay, this. So there is a talk, a particular talk given at Google I/O by the Flutter team. So where they talk about how you can do just this, right? So you can always do that with Gemini as well. What I don't know is whether you can use the regular plan like available, or you need to be on a paid plan with Vertex to use this. But then you can check the video out to explore. Yeah, did I answer your question?
Definitely. Thank you for these resources and thanks for the wonderful session.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you as well. Any other questions?
Um, Thank you so much, developer Jamiu, for the amazing workshop you've given. It was really in depth. And thankfully, we are recording this session, so we can always watch it back to see what we've missed. Thank you so much.
All
Um,
right.
our, our next presenter is okay. Our next presenter is Jerry Okafor, and Jerry is a senior Android engineer and has 7+ years of experience in iOS and Android native development. And previously, he has led a team um, that worked at Carbon in Nigeria. And according to his profile, he's achieved a remarkable 99.9 uptime for a high performance digital banking app. And this app has processed over 3 million transactions daily. So he has this amazing experience that he wants to share with us. So I'm going to allow him to come in, and he's going to talk to us about Gemini for movie recommendation on native Android app. Let's welcome Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not able to share my screen. Is there something that needs to be enabled? Okay.
Can you share now?
Yeah, I can say that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Temi. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, the organizers, the speakers. Thanks, Ndidi, for the presentation. It was power packed, and also Jamiu. Thanks for for the Flutter Super Pack demo. Yeah, so the focus is on AI. So I'm going to walk us through on how we could use Gemini to get a movie recommendation from a list of movies that we have. So there's this app that I've been working on. It's like my pet project. So it uses an open API to load movies. So I was thinking, what if we, implement AI into it in such a way that you just come over the weekend, you just tell the app how you are feeling, and then it will recommend a movie for you based on that. Still work in progress, but what we have so far, we'll be able to demo how we can achieve that using Gemini Android SDK. So let's go right into it. It's going to be a mix of small presentation and then we look at the coding part. So we're going to pull in the SDK, get our API key, and then the movie DB API is already integrated. So we just pull in what we have, fetch movies, and then throw in some prompts to Gemini, and then get our movie recommendations. Yeah. So know about me. I think Temi has said all that there is to be said there. I will share the repo where this project resides so you can see what we have there. Then later on, I can push the changes that we are making. Also make the slide available later on. Yeah, so let's go into it. Yeah, so like I said, we're going to generate the key, the API key. It still follows the same with what Jamiu has demoed. So can you see my screen?
I can't see your screen.
Hold on.
Yeah, I can't see as well.
Uh, can you say it now?
No.
Not at all.
Okay, let me try and share it again. Okay, sorry, I was sharing the window. Let me share the entire screen. Should be better now. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. Yeah, so this is not a uh Google slide or something I was experimenting with. So but it's still a slide as well. So like I said, we're going to generate our API key similar to what Jamiu has demoed. So I'll show us how that is done, but we won't go deep into it because of time. Uh, then we pull in our dependencies for the code that we're going to use. Then we're going to make our choice when it comes to the model that we're going to use. So we inject that into our code base. And then we create a recommendation view model. Then we fetch movies in the movies DB API. Then we create a turn by turn chart history, add some prompt to that. So there are many approach that you could use when it comes to generative models. You could have a single input. You could also go the turn by turn approach, which is similar to what Jamie shared with us. But this way, you kind of share an existing history. It could be a history of a chart with the model, and then you go ahead and start asking a question based on the existing history. Yeah, so we're going to build some small UI code with Jetpack Compose. Then we inject our view model with the UI, and then we test. Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, so like you said, this is a screenshot from the video. So when you head to Studio, you could generate API key. I've already generated one. That's what we're going to be using. So part of the code that I'll be sharing. Yeah, so going to be using three dependencies for this. So this is a section from Gradle version catalog that we'll be using. So I have looked for some fancy animation. Uh, this compose markdown is most of the response from the model will come in as a markdown. So I didn't want to bother with formatting it, so I will just render it in a markdown view. Uh, then the next one is generative AI for Android. That's the SDK that we'll be using. Yeah, so first thing we do is we inject our model. So we have the integration here with Dagger. Dagger is for dependency injection. So it's very common in Android application development. So we are going to be using Gemini Pro. If you look at the model name here, then here is where we input our API. So what we are doing here is to inject it, make it able that anybody could depend on it. Then we create our view model. We're going to model our UI state to hold the UI state so that using this UI state, we'll be able to update our UI with the recommendation that we get. We also update our UI with things like loading state, things like error state as well. So then we create a chart history. So using the chart history, we put in some prompts ahead and then generate the list of movies and add to it, and then go ahead and query the model. So when we initialize our view model, so the movie DB API I have implemented already returns a list of 20 movies per page. So we're going to get like 5 times that be like 100. Then we we now use that as our options that we're going to choose movies from. So it's going to recommend a movie or movies for us based on the options. Yeah, so what we do is we do 1 to 5 five times, map it, then call the movie repository to fetch movies for us. And then we go ahead, we flatten that because that will be returning list of movies. So we flatten it and map it again. So we're going to build a history, which is like the movie title, the description, and some other details, and pass it to the model. So this is different from just asking the model to, generate something. It can actually generate movie suggestions for you, but we want it to generate movies that we have access to, the ones we can watch. Let's say you have list of movies, but you don't know which one to choose from. So we want to restrict the options that it will give us to just be within what we have access to, instead of just telling it to generate movies for us randomly. So the end goal is that whatever movie that is generated here, we should be able to watch it or know more about it from the movies app. Even though the movies app cannot help you watch a movie, it just shows you the details about the movie. But assuming it can help us do that, so the goal will be to watch that movie on the app because we have access to it. So we take what we have. After we have built the list of movies, we add it to the chat history here, and then we update our UI state. We're going to see how this behaves in the UI when we enter into the coding part. Yeah, so for the actual generation, we have a function we call generate recommendation. So it takes in our current emotion, which is a string, could range from angry, confused, happy, anything at all. We're going to configure that. Then we update the UI to indicate loading. We go ahead, take an instance of our chat here, and then we send a message. Notice that we're using stream. We'll talk more about that. So the stream is one that helps us to collect the output of the model in chunks. Because when you prompt the model to do something for you, the result can be so long that it won't return at once. So you use the stream. I know there's also similar function like that in Trotans and all the other SDKs. So you use the stream to collect this response in chunks. So that's what we're doing here. So when we send that, it returns you can see how we are injecting our emotion here. And then we're using this collect. So we're returning a flow of type content. So we collect it here. That's how we collect flow in Android. So knowing that this could actually return an error, so we are running this in a try and catch to make sure that whatever error that is returned here, we are grabbing it and we are simply showing the message. We already have error handling built into the app, so we show us that as well. Yeah, so this is what we are going to arrive at the screen, the one on the right hand side. The one on the left is what we have already with the movies app. So I'm going to share the repository with us. So though it's not designed in such a way that you can take step-by-step approach, but you can look at what we have with the movie the app, and maybe continue to follow on later on. Just a minute, let me grab the link here. Yeah, so here is the one on the right is the screen we are going to build. So you can see once you open the screen, it asks you how are you feeling today. So you could select from the buttons with emojis at the bottom. Uh, they're all different kinds of emotion. So the first one I think should be angry. The second one should be something like you're laughing or you're funny, you're having fun. Then the other one is you're crying. Then the last one should be confused. So that's how it goes. So based on the emotion that we input into it, it's going to generate list of movies for us. So you can see what we have here: generated John Wick, the raid, upgrade, extraction, and so on. So we also have a button on the top right hand side at the nav bar, the top up bar. You could see it there. You could use it to regenerate a particular content based on the same emotion. So if you feel like you don't like it, you don't know more, you could always try generating content with models. Yeah. So let's go into the coding part. Yeah. So this is our code where we're going to be building that stuff. So I have my ID connected. Yeah. Let me mirror my Android. Yeah, so I'm going to run the app, then we start. Sorry, sometimes it takes longer. Yeah, so but while that is going on, so let me start with the module. So this is a Dagger module. So what I want to do here is to inject my generative model. I've already included the dependencies here, like I said. You see them here. You see the other ones here. I have them here. The generative AI, the Lottie, and then the Compose Markdown. Yeah. So when the app loads, we're able to see list of movies, and you could scroll. You could also check based on top rated, popular, and now playing. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and import these dependencies. Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, we're using the Gemini Pro, and then here is our API key. So with this dependency injected here already now, it means that we could use it in any of our code. So let's go to the view model. Yeah, so this typically uses the MVVM approach where you have the view model. The mobile engineers would relate to that very well. So the view model is basically there to connect with the model and the view, which is Compose UI in this case. Yeah, so with this done, it means that we could import the model now. So we're going to start. Let's just um, create a generative model. We also need to import the movie repository. Yeah, so it's called movie list repository. Yeah, so we have the model, the generative model. This is the one that we injected. If you go through here in that guide, it will take us here. So we already have it. It means that we could use the functions that are exposed to it. Yeah, so first thing we do is to model our UI state. I already have the class here. So let me convert it to data class. And then I have a set of states that properties that I want it to have. I want it to be able to tell me when the model is processing. That's the essence of this loading. I want to also be able to get the answer as string. When there is an error, I should be able to get that from here. Yeah, so then we're going to use a state flow to model our UI. So the state flow is what helps us to connect the UI with the view model. Yeah, so as you can see here, so we have UI state of mutable type flow, and it holds the initial state, which in this case is false, empty string, and null. So I'll start by creating a chart. A chart is okay. Let me show us this. It will help. Let me pull this up. Yeah. So here is the documentation for the Android SDK. So there are many ways you could use this model after the setup. So you could generate text from text only input. You could generate text from text and image input. That is multimodal. Then you could also build multi-turn conversation like a chat. Then you can use streaming for faster interaction. So we're going to be using this last two, the multi-turn conversation. So, but we're going to tweak it in such a way that it's not like there is going to be input. The input will be these buttons, these ones here. But why is like chat kind of thing is because you can repeat inputs, it's not so you could first choose the first emotion and feel like, oh, you want to try another one. So it takes time. So that's why we are going to use the chat approach. Yeah, so we're here. Let's create the chat. Call it can it the model or start chat. So we call the start chat and we need to pass history to it. History is a list of things called content. This content is from the Gemini API. So it's a builder. So we could add text, we could add a multi like we just demoed, could add an image as well. So but we are only looking at text. So but something important with the chat approach is that you need to specify the roles. There is role user, you can see up here. There is model. So the user is the user of the app. So model is the generative model in this case. So we already have that defined. So I'm going to put the first row to be model. So in this case, if I was showing the user the details of this chart, it would be the model saying something like, we add a text and say, great to meet you. What would you like to know? That kind of thing. So, but these ones are not part of what will be used in making the choice. It's just to demo how this turn by turn conversation model works. So I'll add another model, another content. This time around is role user. So here is our starter for the chat. So we'll be adding more things to it as we go on. Okay, so then I want, as soon as the view model loads, let's fetch our movies from the movie DB, and we pass it here so that our chart model will always have details of what movies we want to choose from. So we don't want to be repeating that call every time. So we just want to load it once. For this, because the method we'll be using is a suspend function. It's an asynchronous kind of function in Kotlin. So we're going to wrap it in a coroutine. So we do that with view model scope, call it launch. Yeah. So let's call it a list of movies. So we say something like list of movies. Go to so we want 1 to 5. 1 to 5. Then we do a mapping. So this is going to return a count from 1 to 5. So because the API uses some kind of paging that needs to start with 1. So this is going to return page. Then we take that page. First of all, it needs some filter. I have one already created. So we create the filter. put in here. So this is the filter that will be passing. So then we call the movie repository dot. We could choose from any of these upcoming movies, popular movies, now playing. Let's do now playing movies in this filter. Then we pass in filter. Yeah, for now, let's just log this and see what it is like. Then let's do lockdown. Let's call it movies. Yeah, so we can run this just to make sure we are doing well, but it won't show anything yet. We'll just see the log. So let's try that. Yeah, so Android build sometimes takes longer, unlike Flutter, especially depending on the size of the code base. So I hope we have enough time to finish it. Yeah, so how this is activated is you click on this search icon here, just an entry point that I created, nothing much. You could change that. So when you open it, our screen is still empty. There is nothing there yet. We'll add something. But let's look at the log. I was worried that we have red things. A mobile developer, you know that red stuff like this scares the shit out of you. Yeah, so you can see our movies, they are logged here in the log. So we have movies, see the ID, see the title. So it means we're able to fetch movies list. Yeah, so let's go on and continue. Yeah, so like I said, if you look at what we have here, you see that it's returning list of lists. So we don't want that. So what we can do is to go here, just do something like flatten. Yeah, so it changes to list of movies. But we want to extract the content of the movie. So we do map again, or let's call it movie. Yeah. So I have a copy template string here that I will just add here. So this is what I wanted to return. So for every given movie, I want it to turn it to something like title, column, description, rating, and ID. So that's what we'll be feeding into our chat model. So yeah. So it's now returning list of string instead of list of movie because we've taken it list of lists, mapped it, flattened it to list of movie. It was list of movies. We flattened it. It was now became list of movie. Then we now mapped it to string. So it's now list of string. So yeah. So next thing we'll do is to add this to our chat history and update our UI. That marks the beginning of our conversation, of our, how this is, of our UI interaction. So I'm going to remove this and put this. I copied it. So this is our list of movies. So in this case, I just put it here. So what is happening here is we take five, we make 5 network calls, 20 per page, and then flatten it, map it to string, and then we add it. So let's just use let here. We don't need it again. Yeah. So we have this. Now, maybe we should just finish off all the work on view model. Okay. Yeah, let's dive into the UI and see what we have in the UI. So we have enough to show some stuff on the UI. So let's go into the UI first. Aha. Yeah, so here is the UI. It's supposed to be Jetpack Compose. So Jetpack Compose is the newest API for UI development in Android. So we have a preview on top here, so we can see what it looks like as we make changes. So let me minimize this for now so we can look at the UI. Yeah, so first thing, we already have the view model injected, so we just get our UI. So we'll do var UI state by view model dot UI state dot to collect it as lifestyle. Then we can call this here. So this is like state hoisting. That's what this is called. So this is our actual screen, but we want to this layer is what integrates it with the view model. Yeah, so we have a UI state. So we're going to put something on the recommendation click. Let's make it empty for now. We'll get back to that. Then on navigate up is what helps us to close and go back. Just don't mind all these things. Maybe I should have not included the UI part. Yeah, but then this is what we have. We've already integrated our UI here. So let's put text here and display what we have. Let's call UI state dot answers. What is it saying? Yeah, so it's nullable. So when it's null, it just return an empty string. So let's run it again and see what's going on. Okay, we click here. Yeah, so yeah, it's showing on top, but it's got, let's just say, let's add some small spacing. So okay, yeah, you can see the text that we added here. Yeah, so it's working as expected. So let's go on with our coding. So I'll minimize this. So you remember in the screen that I showed us earlier, there is a top-up bar that we added. It actually has a very peculiar behavior. So I'm going to add that. So I'll just copy what I have already because of time. So let me save us the stress of adding all that. Yeah, so let's add the top-up bar. These are some, yeah. So I already have that somewhere. Yeah, so we have that. So let's move faster with the UI, as this is not a UI class. Yeah, so I'm going to copy the rest of the UI code and put in here so that we can move faster. So the good thing is, once I drop it in here, it will start behaving as expected. Yeah, so we have that already. Yeah, so these buttons are the inputs. So when we click on the first one, you can see that it is marked as angry. The other one is, second one is happy. This one is crying, and this one is confused. Yeah, so these are, you may want to tweak it to something better if you are making changes, but then this is just for the purpose of the demo. So this particular stuff here represents our button. So it's a component that we inject. That's what we are calling here. Yeah, so when we have a loading state, let me talk about that. When we have a loading state, this shows, so when we are not loading content, then the actual content is shown here. So this is where I'm using the markdown text, like I said here, and to get some animation. So I added some modifier here called animate content size. So as it's coming in, it will be animated. Yeah, so that's what we have for now. So let's fall back to our view model and finish up the work. Yeah. So what is left is when someone click on that button, we need to take the emotion and use it and make our call. So we'd create a prompt and then input that there. So let me call the function. Let me enter the function here. So like I said, it takes motion of type string, then it doesn't return anything. So we're going to be running it in a view model scope because it is still a suspend function. So like I demoed before, we'll put some try, then catch here, get an exception. For now, let's just say handle exception here. So handle the exception. So first thing we do is to update our UI to tell the UI to show the loading indicator. So we call this mutable state. We call update on it. It dot copy. Loading now is true. And if there were initial errors before, we set it to null, so it clears. Then I'll call the chat. It's now time to send the message. So every time this button is clicked, we'll do this. So we'll do chat dot send message. So if we use this send message, it's going to return one single response. But it's better we use send message string. So let's use that one. So the prompt is what we are going to build. We're saying something like, I'm feeling the emotion. Then we ask it, which movie would you recommend? Would you recommend for me? I'm not the best in prompt engineering, so if you see how we can make this better, please tell me. We'll just have to sit down and fine tune it. So this is what our message is like. And like I said, it is a stream, so we're going to collect it. We call it chunk. So for every chunk, we are going to build on top of the existing one. So we call something like new answer equal to UI state dot value. Let's call the value dot answer plus the chunk. So we are adding to the existing one. At first, it is an empty string. So we update the UI state. So we copy. Loading now is false. Answer is new answer. So we could add some log to this, but let's move on because it will already show on our UI. Yeah, so we'll come back to handle there later on. So let's go here. So now that we have added a function, so what happens when someone click on it? So if you notice here, we have here on recommend click. So I will just move this and create a lambda here, call it this. Yeah. So I'm supposed to return units. That's what we call it. This. Yeah, it takes a string, which is the emotion in this case. Yeah, so what is going on here is that I created a lambda to intercept this click event. So when you click on it, this lambda is invoked. And when the lambda is invoked, we call view model dot generate recommendation. And we are passing in the emotion, which is here. Yeah. So we pass in the emotion. So it invokes the view model and the whole process starts. So we're going to run it now, and then we'll see the what we have built so far. So let's go on. Yeah, so if I click here now, yeah, so it says how are you feeling today? Then see all the chat. How can I help you? You can use any of the buttons below to indicate how you are feeling. So let's try the first one. When I click on it, it does some small animation. Wait, okay. There's an error somewhere, so it's supposed to get something. Uh, One of those things. So let's go and revisit our view model. If you see what is happening, it's returning, it's appending the whole chunk, but we want chunk dot text. That's exactly what we want, I think. Yeah. So we don't want the whole object. Yeah. So let's try it again. Should be fine now. Yeah. So let me click this. Yeah. So we have a recommendation here. It says uh yeah, it went straight and recommended the wrath of Becky, Monster, the roundup punishment, Hitman, and the final attack on Wembley. So I could try another one. Yeah, I don't feel okay with this. Let's try another emotion. Yeah. So he added more to it. This is longer than what you recommended before. Wait, why is it always giving us similar things? Is it that it's not getting the input properly? Okay, we have some troubleshooting here to do. So, but yeah, generally, that's how we achieve this. I'll take a moment and look at the code to make sure everything is fine. Okay, yeah, everything looks fine. Maybe it's that hallucination thing. We can try it again, but let's look at the error handling. So basically, what we're doing with the error handling is anytime there's an error, we update the UI state to show our error. So I'm going to put this here. Yeah, so then in the screen, as the UI, I would check when the error is changing. So you often do that with launch effect in Compose. So I'm interested in the UI state. Um, yeah, I'm interested in the UI state. Anytime the UI state changes, let's just say UI state dot error to avoid so much recomposition. So I will do something like if UI state dot error is not equal to null, and I need to call on show snack bar. So I already have on show snack bar is already implemented in the code itself. So it's just to show a snack bar that uh, that will display the error to the user. So I'm forced on wrapping it because I know that it's not null at this point, so it's not going to crash. So that's how we handle the error. Yeah, let me run it again and we'll test again this time around. Hope that it gives us something better. Okay, so I'll go ahead and try this again. Yeah, so let me click this. Okay. Yeah, so we have something different. It says, since you are feeling happy, I'll recommend a movie that is light-hearted and fun, such as Luca 2021, the Lego movie, Sing, Paddington, and Jeff. So the thing here is that actually loaded list of movies, and there are 100. It's one tedious task to go through 100 list of movies and decide which one to watch, given your feeling. So it's able to narrow it down to like two or three or four items to choose from. So the the, the application is just it's endless. It's all about what you can think of. How else do you want to tweak this? What do you want to get out of it? And you go ahead and try to do it. The important thing to note is that this one of the things I started thinking when I wanted to do this was how do I impute this item uh, to the model. So, but then you realize that it's a generative model. They are all large language models, so which means you can talk to it like you do to human beings. So you don't need to worry so much about the impute. It's been simplified already. So I just put up this the same way you chat with a GPT or on the web app. Once you're able to compose your input, the model is able to read it and understand it. If the model is capable of outputting in different formats, like we saw with Vertex, you can also tell it the format you want. So it could potentially reduce to input formatting job where you give it list of items and then it formats it for you and brings it out the way you want. So the power here is just endless. So we have list of movies. We could expand it, make it 200. So if we want to do that, we could just go here and yeah, make this 10. Then we can get as much as 200 movies and it will help us narrow it down to 5. So in terms of prompt engineering, we can say limit response to only 5, only top 5. So let's try this. So what we just did is we increased it to 200 and we are telling it to limit response to only top 5. Let's see what it's going to give us. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's try the third one. Yeah, so you see, just the small change that we made has just reduced the response. So, but then we did not specify that it should not add details. So, but that's the thing. The option changes. So, but if you want some specific things in the response, you go ahead and specify it. But if you do not, it could add it. It could also not add it. So it changes. So it's still similar. So yeah, but we're inputting 200 now, and we're telling it to limit to only 5. So it's recommending Blue Valentine, Marriage Story, The Farewell, Manchester by the Sea, Call Me by Your Name. Never seen heard this kind of these movies before. Some of them I'm hearing them for the first time. So could go on, try this again. Yeah, okay. We saw an error now, so we're able to catch that. Let's try it again now. This resource has been exhausted. Don't know where that is coming from. Yeah. Okay, we're getting more than 5. I don't know why it's doing that, sure, but maybe you didn't understand this our prompt. Yeah, so based on this last emotion, it was able to recommend these ones for us. So yeah, so that's the short demo. I don't know. Does anyone have any questions so we could take that now? But then recap of what we just did. So we're using the Android SDK. So first thing we did was to pull it in to drop it into our dependency graph, so we can use it, particularly using the Google AI client generative AI for Android. Then we go ahead and expose that to our dependency graph, which is here. Down here. Yeah. So we create the model that we want to use. So we could switch to any other model based on the options that we have. Is entirely up to you. So we inject our API key. Like Jamiu said, there are many other configurations you could add here, like the safety configuration, which helps you suppress some of the contents that have been generated. We'll be going into that. So, but those options are possible. So this is where you specify that. Then after that, it means that our generative model is ready for use. Then we're able to get it here in the view model. And we're using an existing component that we have already, which is a repository of movies. So with the repository of movies, we're able to fetch 200 movies, convert it to string input, and then add it to our chat history. And then we also added a function that when we tap on it, is able to help us query the model based on our history, which we have built up here. Then the screen is where we have a bunch of UI code written in Compose that helps us interact with the model and also pass response from the model. Yeah, so that's what we have. And thank you for your time. Any question? Okay, no questions. Over to you, Temi. Thanks everyone.
It's taking time to. It's taking time to unmute myself. Okay. Hello. Yeah. So thank you so much for an amazing session. And thank you everyone for that stayed to the end. And that's the last speaker for the day. Thank you for staying for all our sessions. In the beginning, we heard from Ndidi, and then Jamiu, and then Jerry. Thank you for staying to the end of our Build with AI event. This event is hosted by the GDG Edmonton group in Edmonton, Canada. And we have more programs in future for you. And you can always check our community page at GDG Edmonton. Let me see if I can grab that link for you right now. Okay. So you can check out our community page, and we'll be able to, and also join our Slack channel from there. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll be rounding up here. Thanks, everyone.